No, it's different ways, different times. I don't really specifically sit and try to write songs. My experience has been over the years that they really sort of start writing themselves inside myself. If I just give them the space to do that. So you might be doing some mundane thing, washing the dishes or whatever, walking along, and a bit of a tune will come into your head, and then I just deliberately don't pay too much attention to it, and then the following week I'll be doing some other chore around the house or whatever, and the tune will come back, and then the next bit will be there. Do you know that kind of way? So they just sort of gently seem to build themselves up. Do you know what I mean? And the same then with lyrics. There are occasions where I do decide there's something I want to write about, but then I don't try to write it. I just inform myself that I want to write about this subject, and then eventually the thing will just build itself, if you like. There's a song on the record called "Reason with Me," which I think is probably my manager's favourite song on the record. But when I had to go into the studio to demo it with him, he had set up the studio, so he was there. I was mortified. I was thinking, oh God, he's just going to think this is the biggest load of shit he's ever heard. I thought it was really corny, and I thought he'd say, oh, come on, Sinead, this is stupid. And he fell in love with it. So. No, and again, I always say to anyone, I teach singing in Ireland, teenage girls, and I always say to them the same things I say to anyone. Is like the only reason that you should ever make a record, and the only thing that should be on your mind when you're making a record, or when you're singing or anything, is the only reason you're doing it is because you're going to go mental if you don't, right? You shouldn't be thinking about what's anyone going to think, or do I want to have a hit record, or do I want to tell so and so either I love them or I hate them, or any of that kind of stuff. It should just be that the thing is in you and it's driving you bonkers, and you have to get it out, and you don't think any further than that, really. So, I mean, to me, the main, if you boil it down to me, if my little one said to me, look, Mum, why do you make records? I'd say because I like singing. And what I mean by that is if I make a record, I get to go on tour. So I get to stand on stages and sing. So the only reason you should be making a record is because you want to do that, because you're just burning to go stand on stage and sing and have that feeling and that whole thing and just get all fun. Well, originally it came from, I didn't know what to call the record, and I had various different titles, and then recently I had experiences in Ireland. It's really very much about Ireland, a kind of comment about Ireland and what it's like to be, an Irish female artist in Ireland, or particularly this Irish female artist. But I write occasionally for one of the Sunday papers in Ireland, and I wrote a series of articles probably about 4 months ago about sex and sexuality and women, and how women want sex and women love sex and all this kind of stuff. And there was this, Ireland is still quite a repressed place in these ways, and it will be really probably until everyone over 35 is dead. There's still a bit of the church business. So there was a great debate went on in the country, and it all got very mischievous. And it was kind of, 50% of the country was, this is great, it's fantastic to talk about these things, where old men just thrilled, wishing their girlfriends had talked about these things with their wives, or this, that. And then there was the other half, of course, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that, you shouldn't say that, you shouldn't. And I kind of, after a while, began to understand within it all that actually, I've spent a lot of my life as an artist actually being told what I should be. Oh, you should do this, you should do this, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that. And I just kind of got, I suppose when you get to a certain age, you just get to where, well, actually, no, it's actually perfectly okay for me to be me, thank you very much, and, you be you, do you know what I mean? And it's very much an Irish thing, it's a very Irish thing that goes on there. Everyone's all very opinion given out about everybody else, and Ireland's a weird country. Somebody said recently, which is really true, that we had the presidential election, but see, we don't vote people in. What we do is we vote people out, and whoever gets the least votes out gets in. But we didn't actually vote anyone in because we fucking hate everyone. So that's a bit the way it is in Ireland, and there's a lot of suppression still, still a lot on women, and still on people generally, about all sorts of subjects, all kinds of things that people aren't supposed to talk about, and all this kind of shit. And true, like I say, I just sort of bit bored all these bloody years carrying all this shit about everyone's opinion about what I should be or what I shouldn't be. Do you know what I mean? So, that was just a gorgeous expression I heard in London. I lived in London for 20 years, from 1985 till just the beginning of 2000. And is that 20 years? I don't know. And I, at one point, I was in a cab, and it was a young Muslim guy driving, and we were having a chat, going to the airport, and it was one of those days, where the whole sky is grey, and then sometimes just a little bit of blue shine out. And he told me in the Arabic countries, they call that the wolf is getting married. You know, he's smiling. You know, he's on the way to his wedding, and I just thought that was a gorgeous thing. So for years I wanted to put it in a song kind of thing. You know, so and so, but I suppose again it was pretty much probably about the relationship I was in. You know what I mean, and stuff like that. Just girly. It's kind of a girly record, actually. Do you know what I mean? You know, it's about girly issues, girly things. You know, so. Well, I love the anger of it, obviously, but I love that John has. I didn't know John before, and we became mates through doing the song, and we're just like the best of mates. Like, and John has a great way of being. He can be very angry, say terribly angry things in a very funny way, even though he's furious and he doesn't mean to be funny, but it's just terribly funny. So I was really struck by the lines like, you know, I don't know who the fuck you think you are. Can I please see your license and your registration? I just thought that was fantastic, you know. And the other stuff about pissing in the coffee and all this stuff that you just wouldn't dream of saying, you know, but he can say. And he says it so beautifully and calmly and everything, you know. I don't know that, you know, the Sex Pistols would get away with it. You know, there's something about him, the beauty of him saying it, you know. And I like it too because it's kind of a song that, you know, is part of you talking to yourself. You know, that we all have these parts of ourselves that the judge that criticises us all day and tells us what fucking wankers we are all day. Do you know what I mean? And I quite like that there's then this other side that, you know, that to me is what the song is about. There's this other side then telling that part of yourself to just shut the fuck up, like, and, you know. So it's a song about self-esteem, taking back your self-esteem, basically. No, it's just in my mind it exists. I'm sure there are streets in Los Angeles called Fourth and Vine.
There's a church in Fourth and Vine in Philadelphia.
Oh right, well I'll have to get married there if I ever get married again. Then I must tell my boyfriend.
So I mean, obviously it's.
There's a very funny story about that song. At least I think it's hilariously funny. Originally, when I wrote the song, I was going out with a guy who had brown eyes, and then me and him broke up. So I had to rush to the studio and change it. I married a guy who had green eyes, changed it to green eyes. He fucked off, ran back to the studio, changed it to a beep because we didn't know what to do, and the beep sounded terrible, of course. So then we said, oh fuck, what colour are we going to do? What the fuck? And we had to think about it. So in the end, we've reverted now to brown just because that's the guy that it was written about. But now I've got this blue-eyed boyfriend, and I actually did run it by John last week that maybe we should do the blue. So he's decided what we should do is just sing the whole colour range, so we can edit the thing over the course of my lifetime. So I end up going out with, you know, fucking David Bowie eyes. We can cover that too.
So I mean, that song obviously it's a love song, a marriage
Yeah,
song.
there's quite a lot of love songs on the record, not deliberately, and I'm pleased about it because I never really did write love songs as such. So yeah, I was going out with this guy who's still my best mate. Like he's my youngest son's father, and myself, and also then my oldest son's father, obviously best mates. So these two guys are like my best fucking mates in the world. So you know, so yeah, we went out together for a good 4 years or so. So yeah, all the songs are written about him. So yeah, all the love songs are kind of pretty much about him. Yeah. So. I suppose I like the idea of, you know, the Holy Spirit basically scaring the fucking shit out of them. Do you know what I mean? And I do believe it has them by the ghoulies, and you know they don't really have long to go. I get annoyed and angry, you know, because obviously the victims and the things that happen to them, but also because I'm someone who does believe in, you know, the Holy Spirit and all that stuff. And although I hate anyone fucking talking about either tattoos or Jesus, I believe in both, quite obviously, and. I don't like what makes me angry, what makes me get up or try to be a bit of a soldier about it is I don't like the Holy Spirit disrespected. I don't like that these people have taken over what is actually our church, you know, and are running it in a way which makes it seem to me they're busy dancing around the little red guy more than they are, you know, praying in front of the poor dead guy, you know. So really that's what it's about to me, that, you know, they come across as people who don't have any respect for the Holy Spirit at all, that they can stand in its presence and lie over the rapes of small boys, you know, that they can cover these crimes up, and at the same time, you know, it takes them 2 minutes to condemn Naomi Campbell for wearing a jewelled cross, or condemn Harry Potter as being evil, you know what I mean, or else like just, so Yeah, basically, they come across to me as people who don't actually believe in God at all, and if they do, they certainly don't respect it. So I liked the idea of scaring them. You know, that's something that I'd be very interested in, scaring the fucking shit out of them with the knowledge that there is a God and there is a Holy Spirit, which is totally gonna flip them. You know, with a lot of the songs on this record, and it wasn't deliberate. I've noticed that there are other characters. I've seemed to have invented other characters. I didn't do it deliberately, but like in the same with Reason with Me, that's not me. It's this guy would Take Off Your Shoes. It's not me. It's the Holy Spirit. Obviously, it's governed by what I fucking feel. Do you know what I mean? It's kind of the Holy Spirit with an AK, you know, on the train on the way to the Vatican, you know. And the same then I think with there are certain other songs on the album where obviously it's me because it's parts of me, but it's another person. Like there's a song called Back Where You Belong, and that's actually a father who has been killed in a war, you know, talking to the son. The son is trying to come to terms with the father not being around or whatever and stuff like that. So, so you know, you prepare. I wouldn't prepare any differently for Take Off Your Shoes than I would for any other song. It's a bit like acting, you know. You do the same process. What is the story I'm telling? What's my motive? What do I want to get out of this? What do I want people to feel when they listen to it? When it isn't always about the lyrics, it can be about the sound of the voice or whatever. Do you know, something you just want to, you know, either silence people or freak people or whatever, you know. The journey, the idea really came from my feelings about being away on tour. You know, I had taken some time off work and then started again, and I used to be very lonely on tour. You know, and I can get quite lonely. I mean, I haven't lately bringing someone with me, but I don't like leaving home. And you know, it's funny because I mean, I am a really strong person, all that kind of shit, just like everybody else. We're all contradictions, aren't we? So, you know, I can be quite vulnerable as well. So I get very, unless I have my home, my kids, all the things that make me rooted, I can get quite fucking freaked traveling around the world. I'm scared of flying, all this bullshit, you know. So when you're away from home, you feel guilty. You know, you're lonely. You're in fucking Ostend in the middle of fucking nowhere with no weed, you know. And it's just like, well, what's the point, you know? And you just get lonely. So I had it from that point of view, because also no one knows that you're suffering. Like, and everyone's at home, kids are fine, everyone's fine, and you ring and you're fine. And they don't know that actually you're not fucking fine because you can't, you know, what can you do? So it's sort of the idea came really from that, just expressing the kind of loneliness which all of us feel on tour. There isn't an artist on earth who won't tell you the same thing. It's just this preacher that I watch on telly, some African guy, I don't know his name, but I like him because he's a lunatic in a good way. I don't know his name, so it's just him. I put the quote on there because it reminded me what artists are meant to be. Do you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't mean you can't. I mean, you have to shake your tits in your ass as well. That's really important. Do you know what I mean? And you know, I want to do all that slutty, get my tits out. It's too late now. Well, actually, maybe it's not, according to my boyfriend. But you know, all the entertainment just and tit waggling, butt jiggling, and everything really important, equally important. You know, but there in Ireland anyway, and it does seem a bit the same everywhere else. But if I just talk about Ireland first, but we had a great tradition in Ireland throughout history of artists being a major part in the sort of creation of history and in the running of our culture. You know, as well as entertainment. You know, they were very involved politically, artists, writers, and that they got nothing but abuse and trouble for what they were writing about and what they were doing. Half of them were driven into exile. They couldn't even live in Ireland because of what, you know, challenging the society. And you know, when you look back at one of the most important events in Irish history is this thing called 1916, which was an uprising basically, which ultimately led to the foundation of the Irish state in 1922, because those who led the uprising were in cold blood kind of a year later killed, you know, and the people of Ireland hated this. And ultimately that's what led to 1922, and then there were civil wars and all kinds of shite because of partition. But when we were kids at school learning about 1916 and the formation of the state and how they began to teach us at the age of 9, 10, 11 was by teaching us what the artists at the time were up to. So they spent a year or so teaching us about the poets. You know, there was Pearse and there was Yeats and there was, you know, playwrights, J.M. Singh, and there was O'Casey and all these other kind of people. And we were wondering, well, why are they telling us about these guys? But we were fascinated. But a year was spent studying the lives of these poets. What were they writing about? What was going on? There was lockouts, there was starvations, children were eating candles, you know. all this kind of stuff, who they were in love with, who they weren't in love with, what mattered to them. And then out of it all, you began to see that these were people for whom Ireland really, really mattered, as well as all the other things, do you know what I mean? And they campaigned for it, and they took shit for it, you know. And now, you know, and it's true to say genuinely in stuff like 1916 that it wouldn't have happened if not for the artists, as well as the others, you know, that the artists were such a major part of what happened, you know. And now you've got this kind of thing in Ireland where the artists have ceased really being involved or interested at all in Irish culture, or Irish events, or Irish history, or Irish issues, you know. And I found that very, very heartbreaking, really, especially in the light of the events of the last, you know, particularly the last, I'd say 4 years, with the publication there in 2010 of the Murphy Report, which was the previous two reports towards that, but the Murphy Report was quite staggering into the kind of Dublin diocese handling of complaints of abuse, you know. And I had tried to get a number of enormously internationally successful Irish artists, musical artists, to get involved in the kind of struggle, just in a small way, you know, and be supportive and lend their voice, especially some who had actually, you know, endorsed JP2, etc. And I was met with an absolute stonewall of disinterest. I was actually told by one of their agents, English agent, said to me that this particular person couldn't be seen to comment about anything but Africa. And I said, do you know how bad that sounds coming out of your English mouth? They're telling me you can't talk about Ireland, like, but so the thing is that the artists are silent really on any Irish issue. There are major shit going on in Ireland at the moment, major shit, and all this church business ranks with 1916 and the famine and all of them as equally important events in Irish history. 100 years from now, kids are going to be at school in Ireland learning about, you know, what happened in 2010, having studied 16 and the artists then. They're going to say, what were the artists doing in 2000 or, you know, in 2010? How come the artists were silent about these issues, or the IMF, or corruption, or political, or anything? They're all silent about everything, you know, no one's opened their mouth about anything. Except for there are two artists who I really admire, is Eleanor McAvoy and Gavin Friday, because they've dealt with the church issue very nicely. So I think it's kind of criminal, really, that, you know, the major musical art, now to be clear, poets and playwrights and painters and all have covered issues, but the musical artists are fucking doing nothing, you know. And I think that's kind of criminal that they're just not interested in Irish issues at all, and they don't even pay their fucking tax in Ireland, you know. So like, there then also is that people are asking around in Ireland, how come lately with all this shit going on, there seems to be this kind of national stunned silence on so many issues, we're not protesting anything, whatever. And I'm sure that part of that silence must be because there is a silence on the part of artists, because it was artists' job always in history to be the people who were vocalising things that mattered, and to be spiritual uplifters of things, and to be, you know, upsetters or whatever, not for the sake of it, but, you know. But if the artists, who are the very people who are meant to be shouting from the rooftops about stuff, are silent, you know, then we're in serious trouble, you know. And I also, I guess I feel strongly about the two particular artists that I wrote the song to, because one of them, as I say, is someone who very much endorsed John Paul II, went to meet him, had his picture taken with him. The night John Paul II died, this artist was on stage with the rosary beads that John Paul gave him wrapped around his microphone. This is way after some of these reports had come out, going on about what a great guy this guy was, you know. And, you know, one sentence from this person would have meant the world to victims, and more importantly, would have got information quickly, because this is a powerful person, and so is the other person. These are people who can get very powerful shit done, do you know what I mean? And I think things could have moved along very quickly. But what annoys me is the one that endorsed the JP and all is someone who goes on about believing in God all the time, you know?
I don't know what you're talking about. Yes.
Right, so my feeling is, you know, as artists, look, don't wave your fucking Grammy around going on about you believe in God if you're not prepared to stand in the street and fight for the honour of God in your own country, when there's a pitched battle in the street for the honour of God, when your church is out of getting taken over by Satan, they've been raping little boys. What are you going to say about it? You know what I mean? It's like, it's just fucking stupid. Like, yeah, I think, you know, and I thought for years, and I know, look, you know, I'm not a terribly nice person, you know, I'm sure I'm being completely unchristian now, but then fuck that too, you know what I mean? Because we're too busy sucking each other's dicks in the music business. The biggest cocksuckers of all and star fuckers of all is the stars themselves, you know? And we're too busy doing nothing and caring about nothing, and not willing to risk and I think it's a letdown to the previous artists. You've got people like Edna O'Brien in the 60s were writing very innocent books about kissing and sex, exiled, couldn't live in the country. James Joyce couldn't live in the country because of writing about sex. You know, it's kind of shit. J.M. Singh, pariahed for writing about a woman in her nightdress, you know, to riots outside the theatre, you know, this kind of shit, you know. So there was a tradition of artists who laid their life on the fucking line, like, you know, and now we've got these lazy fucking artists who really, you know, nothing to worry about really, except, you know, how can we avoid paying tax in Ireland, you know what I mean? I think it's about time to call certain things what they are. I was a bit nervous about challenging these artists and that because I don't want to have bad vibes, and I actually really love these guys personally. But I'm a person who can compartmentalize. Like if I had a personal row with you, it might right now I'm going to fucking kill you over something. But I'll put that aside when we're working. It doesn't come into it, and so I'm a compartmentalizer. You know, so you know I'm not too happy about having to insult these guys or whatever. But at the same time, I kind of think, yeah, it's big times in Ireland. There's big shit going on in Ireland, and it's criminal that the artists are doing nothing. So yeah, it's probably time to actually start calling a few spades spades. You know, what's the point? You know, having kids running around on stage with masks of the poor Burmese lady who was locked up. Like, okay, I'm sorry she was locked up. I'm glad she's out and all, but who the fuck has got the masks of these little kids that were raped on? Do you know what I mean? Who's got the mask of the Christ who's being blasphemed against or you know, held hostage on? Do you know what I mean? Why aren't you caring about your own country? It's very simple. Do you know what I mean? And why is it everyone's afraid to challenge everybody? Like, why can't we piss Bono off? Why can't we piss Geldof off? Do you know what I mean? You know, it makes no sense. You know, so I hope they get pissed off enough to say something. You know. It has to be. I mean, you know, we have a responsibility, and like I say, equally we have a responsibility to shake our tits and ass. That's terribly important as well. But what the fuck are we doing? Saying nothing about. I mean, that's what I mean. Is like fine, but shut up about God then. Don't dare wave your fucking Grammy in front of my face on the telly and thank God for it. You know what I mean? If you know, Graham, if you don't believe in God, and you don't believe in anything spiritual, then fine, don't be conscious. But in your own country, the devil is raping your children, and you say you believe in God. What are you going to do about it? You're not going to stand there and get your picture taken with him, all right? So, I don't do that because I just think it's a bit like children, isn't it? Albums, do you know what I mean? Like you know, each one is different, and you love things about each of them. Do you know what I mean? And there might be ways you might go back and do things differently or whatever, but you can't really compare them. They're not, you know, the same things. So,